days, and I'll guarantee you we'll get it passed. If they want their money, they'll pass it. All right, you all be careful and be safe. God bless you.
I would love to tie everything to these clowns in D.C.'s pay and if they're going to get paid. We had Randy Fine earlier on the show saying, for whatever reason in the Constitution, it stated that lawmakers need to get paid no matter what. And I agree with you. Don't pay them. By the way, if they hold out or if government gets shut down because one side won't vote to fix something, dock them all. Dock them. Don't even make up the pay to them. They don't need it. Please, they come into DC with no money and they leave with millions upon millions of dollars on $174,000 a year. That is BS. You know they're lining their pockets at our expense. Ran out of time. We'd like to get some more voicemails in tomorrow, so send them in. We'll hear them. War Room is coming up next. Bannon's got it covered. Man, you go into the War Room, you come out smarter. War Room next. See you tomorrow, folks.
The judge is saying, Katie, in a 3-page order just decided that the ballroom may not have any further construction done. They are preliminarily enjoined from taking any action in furtherance of the physical development of the proposed ballroom at the former site of the East Wing of the White House. And then he goes on to detail what exactly it is that the administration may not do to make it crystal clear that this applies to everything from excavation and foundation work to construction work. This is a judge who does not want to be circumvented by the White House, and that's why he's being as concrete as he is about what it is that they can't do. But I will also note that this order won't take effect for 14 days.
Can they build the place in 14 days?
Well, I don't know that they can build the place in 14 days, but I think what he is trying to do is also give the administration an opportunity to perhaps appeal this ruling. A preliminary injunction is, in fact, immediately appealable to the D.C. Circuit, and that may be what they're trying to do. At the same time, the judge, Richard Leon, who's a senior judge in the D.C. Federal District Court, is saying that they need to file a status report within the next 3 weeks, apprising the court of their compliance. So he seems to both be allowing them an opportunity to appeal, but also warning them in the same breath, don't come back to me in 3 weeks and tell me all of the steps that you actually did take and the 2 weeks before this takes effect
Is this
to ignore
the sort of thing that goes to the Supreme Court?
I think it could ultimately go to the Supreme Court, particularly because what Judge Leon seems to be focused on is whether or not there is congressional involvement here. It's basically instructing the White House and all of the various defendants here, you may not go any further without express authorization from Congress.
Some breaking news now. A federal judge has ruled that a key part of President Trump's executive order targeting NPR and PBS was unconstitutional. The decision blocking the administration from denying federal funds based on editorial viewpoint. While the ruling does not reverse the Trump-led campaign to strip NPR and PBS stations of federal funding, it is a First Amendment victory that could lead to some funding for PBS and NPR in the future. You might remember that last summer, Republicans in Congress rescinded federal support over objections from public media advocates. In the ruling, Judge Randolph Moss writes, quote, the First Amendment draws a line which the government may not cross at efforts to use government power, including the power of the purse, to punish or suppress disfavored expression by others. He goes on to say that the president's executive order crosses that line because it singles out two speakers and, on the basis of their speech, bars them from all federally funded programs. PBS says that the network is thrilled with today's decision and that we will continue to do what we've always done, serve our mission to educate and inspire all Americans as the nation's most trusted media institution.
Express authorization from Congress. Are they going to be taking this up?
I don't know if they'll take it up, but I would put the chance that they would authorize this at close to zero. If there was actually a number lower than zero, I would put it there, because you're not getting, there is no chance of the president will get 60 votes in the Senate to build a ballroom at the White House. None, zero. Could he get it through the House? Yeah, probably. But I'll take it, Lisa didn't mention this, but I'll take it a step further. If they were to need money for this, I think that would also be close to zero.
Okay. Tuesday, 31 March, year of our Lord 2026. Welcome to the afternoon show. We're going to do a little juggling. It was just announced earlier today. The president will be signing an executive order momentarily from the Oval Office, and we will go live there, covered all wall to wall. It turns out, oh, by the way, that this executive order has to do with mail-in ballots. So we were having Mike Davis on today as the president got pounded by these radical judges at kind of the entry level in the federal court system, both on his ballroom, and also NPR, PBS, all of that, the shutdown of that. But Mike, I don't know, did the president listen to you this morning talking about the Senate and giving up on the SAVE Act and leaving town and being lazy? And he and Kurt Olson, a couple of people, whipped up. It's supposed to be a pretty detailed executive order about mail-in ballots, sir.
Well, the president has the power under the Constitution, the duty to take care that our laws are faithfully executed under Article 2, and that includes making sure that our federal election laws, our federal election rules are administered in a way where we're ensuring that we have one person and one vote, equal protection of the law. Not only does that deal with our election laws, it deals with our civil rights laws. The president absolutely should require more safeguards in place to make sure that the legal votes of real Americans are not being canceled out by illegal votes from dead people or illegal aliens or others. So this is an important step that the president's taking to faithfully execute our laws.
Okay, so you're in the years in the wilderness, you were one of the architects of this thinking through the Article 2 powers of the presidency, from being the chief executive officer. He can hire and fire who he wants. He can cut, the appropriations bill, which is a law, is a ceiling, not a floor. His powers as commander in chief of the armed forces, whether it's the Alien Sedition Act or this current conflict under, not being addressed by the War Powers Act, going to Congress, and also most importantly as chief magistrate and chief law enforcement officer. If this was our direction all the time, will it be held against him that he did try to go to Congress and tried to codify this in the SAVE Act first, then the Save America Act, and when both of those ran into problems, and quite frankly, when the Senate just said, I don't know if we're going to do this, left town, he then comes forward with what I understand is a very well thought through executive order. Would that be held against him? Because they'll say, hey, look, you understood you had to go to Congress to do that. Once you were blocked, you came back with this jujitsu executive order, sir.
I don't think that this executive order is going to cover everything that was included in the Save America Act. This is the president making sure we're taking reasonable precautions under existing statutes to make sure that the legal votes of real Americans are not canceled out by illegal votes from non-Americans, including dead people. So we'll see what the executive order says, but I'm fairly confident that the president has the power as the chief executive officer to take care that our laws are faithfully executed, both our election laws and our civil rights laws.
Mike, you were here, I think, every day on the show. I think it was in February, March, because the president, those years in the wilderness, everybody had all the executive orders, everything ready to go. We were flooding the zone every day. And of course, they took us to court every time we put an executive order. And that first line of kind of radical judges would put stays on TROs, all that, and then shut us down for a while until it went through a process. It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, the one that we just got today on the Ballroom and the one that we got on NPR PBS, the judges are getting quite personal about the president and a little nasty. I mean, these things now have an edge. I'm not a lawyer, but when I read them, I say, wow, these things have an edge to them written by these judges. Are some of these radical judges just digging in harder and saying, hey, and they're clearly suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, sir?
It's almost comical to watch these judges issue these injunctions. You're telling the president of the United States, who's one of the best builders in the world, that he can't improve the White House with a ballroom for 1,000 people and a Secret Service command center under that Ballroom. He can't improve that. He has to keep the East Wing dump in place. And how does anyone have standing to challenge what the president does? You have to have Article 3 standing. Who was injured? Who was injured by the president's decision? And finally, on both of these matters, NPR and the East Wing, their President Trump's already demolished them. I mean, what are these injunctions going to do? They want the East Wing to sit as a construction zone for another 6 months. They want what? They want Congress to fund.
Well, the judge,
NPR
I think the judge actually on the Ballroom, he has like a whole list of things to make sure that no piece of equipment can move over there. I mean, he really goes out of his way to make sure it just stays as a construction zone. And I think he also has a line in there that goes, "You are the president of the United States. You're not like the landlord or the tenant," or he's got some sort of convoluted. But this thing is personal. How does this play from here? Does this immediately they go into court right away and try to get a stay, the White House or the Justice Department, a stay on it to get back to work on this thing? Is it go right to appellate court? Because both of these, first off, NPR and PBS, as you said, most of it's broken apart. If you look at the local TV station now, they're saying, hey, the government used to give us $1.5 million. We got to make it up by having these fundraisers. We're going to do it on our own. I mean, what is even left over at NPR? And on the Ballroom, they're just telling him, literally, you're shutting down and nothing's going to move in that construction site.
It's amazing. These opinions read like obituaries, right? Trump's already demolished the East Wing. He's already demolished NPR. I mean, these judges in D.C. are reading obituaries. I mean, what the hell are they going to do with this Ballroom? What are they going to do with NPR? They're both gone. They're dead. I hate to break it to these judges. And Judge Leon, he's a nice enough guy, Judge Leon. Judge Leon says that the president of the United States is not the landlord in chief. Does Judge Leon think that he's the landlord? I mean, he's giving the president of the United States, who's one of the best builders in the world, a construction punch list. In his opinion, it's almost laughable how out of touch these D.C. judges are with the rest of the world.
For the audience, and I want to go to the executive order, do you believe the president getting increasingly frustrated that the Senate and the House are not moving? Do you anticipate we're going to see more executive orders that are going to, take an edge that will actually end up in court? Because I'm sure this executive order on mail-in ballots they'll sue on this immediately. Do you believe the president's kind of fed up with the lack of progress legislatively, and we'll see more executive orders around more things that he's being blocked on?
Well, I mean, the president should do both. He should lean in hard on the Save America Act. We do not need 60 votes in the Senate to pass the Save America Act. That is just an excuse for these lazy and weak Senate Republicans. You need 60 votes to invoke cloture and end unlimited debate in the Senate. But if you force Senate Democrats to stand on their feet and debate the Save America Act, these Senate Democrats are going to run out of gas. They're going to stop debating, and then the Senate can pass the Save America Act with a simple majority votes. We just need the will of Senate Republicans. We need Senate Republican leadership. We need Senate Majority Leader John Thune to treat this as a crucial priority, because it is. We do not want illegal aliens rigging and stealing our elections. And the Save America Act has broad bipartisan support. 80% of Americans, supermajority of Democrats, supermajority of minorities. It seems like these D.C. judges and these D.C. senators need to get outside of Washington, D.C. more, go talk to real Americans and real America. I think we're getting a little out of touch among Senate Republicans.
Mike, we got about a minute. You said early on that tomorrow would happen, that we would actually get to argue in front of the Supreme Court with the Solicitor General, the 14th Amendment, the birthright citizenship. Is going to happen tomorrow. We're going to cover it all day, including live. Also, Mike Howe and the mass deportation team is putting out their entire plan tomorrow. Just give our audience, we got 60 seconds left. tomorrow, how big a day is it for us for really getting our hands around immigration in this country?
This is a crucial case, and this is so simple if the justices simply follow the law. Under the 14th Amendment, you people who are born in the United States subject to the jurisdiction of the United States get birthright citizenship. You have to be subject to the jurisdiction. Illegal aliens are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. They're subject to the jurisdiction of the country from which they came. This is a very simple, straightforward application of the law. If the justices follow the law, they should get to the right result. If they don't, then we're just going to be on the slow destruction of America.
Mike, Article 3, where do people go right now to participate in all this?
Article3project.org. You can donate, follow us on social. The action item is the Save America Act. Light up both of your home state senators. Tell them to end their recesses for kids, their second paid vacation in 40 days. Get their asses back to work. Save Act. Light them up.
Thank you, sir. Short break.
Running on empty, brain fog, can't focus, and those sugar-loaded energy drinks? Sure, they spike you fast, then crash you hard. Fix it with Soldier Fuel, the official energy drink of real America's voice. Soldier Fuel was born in the military to solve a real problem. Troops were relying on sugary drinks that wreck performance, so they built a better option. Zero sugar and steady energy, powered by caffeine, taurine, inositol, and extra B vitamins for clean energy and focus. No roller coaster crash. This isn't gas station hype. Soldier Fuel was built alongside the U.S. military and proven where it counts. Used by American soldiers and elite special operations.
This is really good.
And when you fuel up, you give back. 15% of profits go to pro-military charities. Scan the QR code, search for Soldier Fuel on Amazon, or go to buysoldierfuel.com and get an automatic 15% off your entire order. At Real America's Voice, we know that you want to be a part of something bigger. That's why we've teamed up with AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, to build a real community of folks who care about faith and our country's future.
There is no force on earth that can stop us from saving our country.
Want to be a part of this movement? It's easy. Just scan the QR code on your screen right now. That's right. Grab your phone and scan the QR code to join the AMAC and Real America's Voice family today. By scanning the QR code, you'll unlock exclusive content, connect with like-minded Americans, and be first in line for events that celebrate our shared values. So don't wait. Scan the QR code. Join us today and become part of a community that stands for faith, family, and freedom.
Real rights, they come from God.
With AMAC and Real America's Voice. Go ahead. Scan the QR code now.
This is Tim King, also known as USS Malik, and I love Real America's Voices for its like-minded programming and the chat. Love you guys.
This is Diane from Rhode Island. Why do I love Real America's Voice? Because they deliver us facts from hosts who love America and love God. What's not to like?
Hello, this is Kurt. Why do I love Rav? If you ever talk to the hosts, you can do that on Rav. And the Rav family, they'll talk back to you too. Let you know what's going on. Take care.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, Neil McCabe, let's go to the White House. And for the audience, as soon as the president, I guess, comes into the Oval, they're going to let the pool, and I think he's in the Oval actually getting briefed. There's an executive order that was announced after our morning show today that the president would sign at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time in the Oval, and there would be media there, and I'm certain that he's going to take questions. There's a lot that's happened in the war today. We've got a great little cold open for you. I'm going to get to that. It's a lot of everything we talked about this morning was a big topic of conversation, particularly It's now leaking out from the White House. The president is really looking through, like I said, always giving him optionality. He's looking at a number of alternatives, including sitting with his military leaders and discussing where exactly the things stand in taking down the regime's command and control, their ability on the ballistic missile to destroy that, to destroy the Navy, the Air Force, all those punch lists, that 4 or 5 things he had to accomplish. Where do they actually stand with that, and what needs to be done? Also, in the Strait of Hormuz, there's been a lot more conversations with everyone, including the president simply saying, hey, look, we're not going to be there forever to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. Somebody's got to pitch in here, or we just may pull chocks and be out of here. Of course, the president, as you know, is always looking for leverage in negotiations. We're going to get to that in a moment. I want to go back to this, Neil. Neil, we know they had been working on something dealing with mail-in ballots. As you know, the president, you have both the machines and you have the mail-in ballots. He's really upset about the mail-in ballots. The president's very upset that the Senate just kind of took off. And remember, they took off. They cut a deal that was so bad, even the House, Johnson said, we can't agree with that deal. They didn't fund ICE. They didn't fund Border Patrol. They didn't even make, I think, arrangements even to pay TSA when the House rejected theirs. So the president's had to find money there. Now, if you go to the airports, the combination of ICE and I think getting the TSA guys at least some money have really dropped the wait times at the airports. But he's also very concerned that the Save America Act would just kind of fare thee well. And remember, we went back now, I think it's 2 weeks, with Mike Lee and his team and people like Eric Schmidt and Tommy Tuberville and others that were going to seize the floor and force this confrontation over the filibuster to get a standing filibuster. As much as they try to do every night, it just didn't happen. And then there's a deal cut, and the Senate just took off. You got everything from Lindsey Graham, being photographed. And the Lindsey Graham things were so bad. When people brought him to me, I said, that's artificial intelligence. It can't be Lindsey Graham. He's walking around. He's got like it was a bubble wand, or I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was a doll, right? Lindsey's walking around with his doll, his binky, around Disney World. They just took off. And so I know the president's been working on this, on another process. Talk to me about what's about to happen. The president's about to sign an executive order. You've got some reporting from your sources at the White House. This executive order is pretty detailed, and it's got some good, I should say, interesting interconnections between federal agencies that could really give this thing some heft. Neil McCabe, thoughts?
So Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon has been using, she's the head of the Civil Rights Division, and she's been doing various litigations on voter rolls. The difference is that, those could be 6 months, a year, 18 months litigations. By doing an executive order, you're putting a total government approach and you're putting all hands on deck. What this EO does is it connects Homeland Security, Social Security, the post office, so that everybody creates, so these guys get together, they create for each state a verified roll of voters for mail-in ballots and perhaps other purposes. The Attorney General is brought in because the Attorney General is directed to prosecute anyone who interferes with this process, and also there would be a process to withhold funding from the states that do not cooperate. And so that's the action taken today in the Oval, Steve.
Okay, let's hit rewind for that for a second, because I think this is the type of thing that a lot of people, and you have to, weigh about the government getting too involved in surveillance, et cetera. But a lot of people that are involved, that are concerned about the stealing of elections. And I just might add, if we could play for the 6 o'clock hour, I'd like to tell my team, I want to get the all of my rants about ICE being at the polling places. And Ken Cuccinelli, Ken's a good guy. He's over at CRA. He's one of Russ Vought's guys. He was on CNN like the next night. They played the whole clip of me ranting on War Room about that, and they had Scott Jennings and some other people. And Ken goes, well, Steve knows that's totally illegal because every federal officer's got to carry a firearm, and they can't carry a firearm and everything. I mean, he kind of gave this weird theoretical answer. The The Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Todd Blanche, was on the stage, I think, with Matt Schlapp at CPAC, and he says, no, I agree 100%. We're going to actually have ICE agents at the, he agrees, I think we can have ICE agents, we should have ICE agents at the polling booths in November. Of course, the left completely melted down because now you talk to a guy that's got a real stroke called the DAG, the Deputy Attorney General. I want to go back to what you just said because this has been thought through. And I mean, this is the type of thing that if you really connected these dots and gotten these massive bureaucracies, and people should understand, they don't talk to each other. Their computer systems are not the same. They don't talk to each other. They have their own processes, each one, and they're very territorial about that process. But just walk through what you walked through a second ago about what is the basics of this executive order.
I think the keystone is the creation of a solid voter list for each state. So we actually know who are the legitimate voters and who is not. And then only those people will vote. And certainly only those people will have mail-in ballots. And those mail-in ballots will be tracked with barcodes, which will sort of satisfy one of the objections that was heard on the Senate floor, because if you put someone's name on a secret ballot, or there's 2 envelopes or 3 envelopes, it's either confusing or it actually gives away, the secret ballot. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to see, we have a lot of agencies that have data. They're supposed to be data sharing anyway. There was an EO signed last year, 14282, that was supposed to facilitate the data sharing, and this is just hammering it home again.
So we're going to jump as soon as we get word from the White House. We're not in the pool today, but as soon as we get word, we will cut live to the White House. I'm sure the president's going to have a couple of 3 things to say before he signs this, because this is something that's very close to him. I tell people, if you are not on top of the stealing of the 2020 election, I'm not so sure you're core. You can be MAGA. I'm not so sure you're core MAGA, because this is one of the core beliefs: is that the stealing of the 2020 election had the country veer, particularly after President Trump's first term, in a very dangerous direction under the illegitimate regime head Biden. And we saw what happened: 25 million illegal aliens in the country. Now there's all tomorrow. We're having to put out. Mike Allen's team is going to put out a mass deportation alliance coalition. It's got a very detailed, we're going to go through it in detail tomorrow, very detailed action plan, but that's because of what Biden did. And so this is the railhead of so much of MAGA. Also, Neil, I would assume that the president is going to take a couple of 3 questions from the various reporters that will be in there. Particularly, I'm sure a lot of them is going to deal with the war, is going to deal with the activities about the war this afternoon, sir.
Yeah, well, the Save America Act was AWOL at yesterday's press briefing. There were no questions. There were no statements. It was almost like, forgotten and everybody's moved on. The president hasn't moved on. And I'm hoping that he will go into some of these details of how DOJ is actually going to affect that. As you know, Thune and Grassley have allowed Democratic senators to block federal prosecutors in their states that they don't like. And so one of the problems you have is you might have a U.S. attorney, but that U.S. attorney is basically doing whatever he wants because he's not connected to MAGA and Trump, because he was basically appointed by the Democrats. So maybe the new Assistant Attorney General for fraud, Colin McDonald, he may get involved, and you may see special attorneys that are designated to go after this. You talk all the time about a forcing function or a hammer. I think the prosecution, the threat of prosecution, that's a hammer.
Neil, you brought up a good point. I want to go back over that, is that because the president is very cognizant, particularly as things are out there in the ether, as the media is covering them, how they get priorities. The Save America Act, which was supposed to be everything, and the president put a lot of political capital in back of it, saying, hey, I want this done. This is my number 1 priority. You had Mike Lee Schmidt and others of his top lieutenants in the Senate, do that whole thing for that whole 2 weeks, right? Every night you would cover it. We would cover it here on War Room. You would cover it over Real America's Voice. And it just all of a sudden in the middle of the night they voted. They didn't fund ICE. They didn't fund Customs and Border. The House just sat there and go, we can't do this. So it ended up they didn't even do the security at the airport. And so it just got to be a fiasco. And the Save America part of it just kind of vanished into the ether. Sir, your thoughts?
Right. So when John Thune showed up at the House floor at 2:15 in the morning, they had given everyone the impression that the Senate was done for the night. So the debate ended like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and basically everybody went home. And then Thune snuck in, and the majority leader's able to call bills on the floor by just snapping his fingers, and that's what he did. He just put a wooden stake through it and went home.
Neil, hang around. You're at the White House. We're going to go momentarily to the Oval Office, the President of the United States. We're going to take a short commercial break, get a commercial break in here. We're going to return to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in the War Room in a moment.
At Real America's Voice, we love Pastor Jensen Franklin, a faithful servant of the Lord who brings our audience life-changing sermons every Sunday.
God is after a conversation with you.
And now, Jensen has a new book that will impact you too. What if your most effective prayers were not your longest ones? So many believers feel pressure to say more, thinking longer or more eloquent prayers will move the hand of God. But Scripture says otherwise. Throughout the Bible, brief, heartfelt prayers brought breakthrough and divine intervention.
And if I can inspire you to pray, I can inspire you to be like Jesus.
You will discover how even a simple cry, like, Lord, save me, can open heaven's windows.
I really believe it's going to change your life.
Filled with biblical examples and practical encouragement, this book will help you pray with confidence in every circumstance.
You are missing so much more God has for your life.
Get ready to experience the miracles that come when you pray short, bold prayers filled with power. Scan the QR code now and order your copy today on Amazon.
When it's breaking, we're moving.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
News doesn't sleep. At Real America's Voice, we don't get to crash or lose focus. That's why we drink Soldier Fuel to stay ahead of the chaos, because we do this for you.
So good.
Soldier Fuel has no sugar, so no crash.
Now that's a game changer.
I'm fueled up now. Woo!
Used by the U.S. military every day. Now available to you.
This is huge.
Built by Patriots for Patriots.
Now it's time for you to do the Soldier Fuel Challenge. Order Soldier Fuel, film yourself cracking one open, and taking the Soldier Fuel Challenge. Upload your video at soldierfuel.com/challenge, and you'll be entered to win a free shipment of Soldier Fuel.
That's what I'm talking about.
Your video could also be featured on air. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to soldierfuel.com/challenge to enter. Drink with the RAV hosts drink, Soldier Fuel.
Let's go.
Hi, this is Becky from the Florida Panhandle, and I love watching Real America's Voice for the programming, the hosts, and my Rad Chat family.
It's Mama Love in northern Minnesota. You know, a collective voice is much louder than a single voice. Thanks, Rav, for giving us a place to chat and connect. See y'all in chat.
I'm Patriot Mermaid, and I'm from West Haven, Connecticut. When the mainstream media wasn't giving us the truth, I went and looked for the truth and found it on Real America's Voice. Come and join us. Come on.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, before we go to the Oval, we're going to cut there as soon as the president allows us to enter and to sign this executive order. I'm sure we'll hear a few words from him and answer. I'm sure he's going to take some questions from the press. The healthcare system's broken. All Family Pharmacy has a system up to kind of break the control that the big pharmaceutical companies and distribution and pharmacies have control over your life. Michael Kunzler is the founder. They have over 400 medications that you can get through a pharmacist and or a licensed medical profession. Michael, tell us about the company. I wanted you back on here tonight because you got an unbelievable offer that the War Room Posse has been telling me about now for 2 days, up to 25% off. You got a coupon. Where do people go? What do they do? And why do they do it?
They can go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Bannon. The coupon code is Bannon25. It's good for the entire website. Whether you need an emergency med, you need some ivermectin, some albendazole, maybe you're looking at the anti-aging drugs we have, the cosmetic medications, some of the stuff RFK Jr. always talks about, some of those peptides. We have a new peptide gel. It's a copper gel for, hair.
Can we get him back up?
Constantly adding as the days go on. Methylene blue, NAD+.
I tell you, Michael, I think President did. Okay, Michael, we got to jump. We lost your audio for a second. We'll get you back on as soon as the president leaves the Oval Office. Let's go to the Oval Office, the President of the United States.
And maybe it'll be tested, maybe it won't. I think it's very obvious what's said. And I'll ask Will Scharf to start off, attorney, a great talent, a very brilliant young man. And if you could discuss it, and then I'm going to ask Howard Lutnick to say a few words, and then I'm going to sign it, and we'll take a couple of questions. Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, as you said, you have in front of you an executive order that deals with a number of issues relating to election integrity. As you've consistently identified, two of the biggest problems we have with election integrity in this country are, one, inaccurate voter rolls that allow ineligible people to vote in various federal and state elections all over the country. And then secondarily, you've consistently identified that vote by mail in this country has become rife with fraud. People returning ballots who aren't eligible to return ballots being sent to people who aren't confirmed to be eligible voters. So what this executive order is going to do is, one, we're going to take federal data. We're going to ensure that each state's election officials are provided with a comprehensive view of who the eligible voters in their jurisdiction actually are, allowing them to properly verify that everybody voting in their elections is legally able to vote. And then it orders the Postmaster General, the U.S. Postal Service, to take bold new measures to verify that ballots both being sent to people are being sent to people who are eligible to vote, and then that ballots being returned are being properly returned by eligible voters only. And we believe that combined, the measures in this executive order will help secure elections in the future and ensure that the many abuses of our election system in the past aren't repeated in future elections.
Right. Howard?
So the fundamentals of our democracy are built on voter integrity, right? We all need it. You've said it time and time again. It's a total agreement amongst everybody. So here's the idea. The states, right, run these elections. They will, if they want to use the U.S. mail, the U.S. Postal Service, they're going to get a code, a barcode from the U.S. Postal Service, and they're going to put that on the envelope, and we will have one envelope per vote. None of this time where we have no idea, there's no observers to mail, there's no envelopes, there's no certainty. That's all going to go away, and what the president is doing today is he's going to make sure that mail-in ballots are safe, secure, and accurate, and will have a clear distinction. If you voted by mail, you will have it on the envelope. Obviously not on the ballot, but on the envelope. So we will know 1 million mail-in ballots. There'll be 1 million envelopes, and you'll be able to know exactly, correctly, that citizens voted.
And this came up with some great legal minds. They looked at the various documents and everything that was going on, because the cheating on mail-in voting is legendary. It's horrible what's gone on. And it's very clearly covered, very, very clearly. So I think this will help a lot with elections. We'd like to have voter ID. We'd like to have proof of citizenship, and that'll be another subject for another time. We're working on that. You would think it would be easy. It's a 98% issue for Republicans. It's 86%. The thing just came out, a poll, and it's 86% with Republicans and Democrats, not leaders, because the leaders of the Democrats cheat. And the only people that don't want to do voter ID are people that cheat. There's no other reason for it. Proof of citizenship, they want to be able to cheat. There's no reason. They have all sorts of reasons, excuses, but it's all nonsense. They want to cheat. But the Democrats themselves are very high. It's a very positive, very, very good thing. The Democrat voters, the Democrat leaders, guys like Schumer, who are corrupt, they want to use it for cheating because their policy is so bad with, think of their policy, open borders for everybody, where people pour into our country from countries all over the world. Think of that. You look at, just take any issue, take anything, everything they have is so crazy. But the fact that they don't want to sign voter ID is another issue. It's a big issue. The fact that they don't have proof of citizenship, that they want transgender for everybody, that they want men in women's sports. So the only way, they assume, the only way they can win is to cheat. When you have men in women's sports, it's fine, it's wonderful. By the way, I worked very hard with the Olympic Committee and got that terminated for the Olympics. Very nice. Now, girls won't have to get beat up in the boxing ring like they did last time. If you saw those fights, two people that transitioned beat the hell out of everyone, out of other people, women. It was not a pretty sight to watch. So I worked very hard with the Olympic Committee, and we were able to get that out. So the Olympics will not have men in women's sports. But these are the things that they vote on, and that's why we're having a problem with them. They don't want ICE because they don't want people to be taken out of our country that are murderers, that are drug dealers, and that are people from mental institutions, the criminally insane. These are not nice people. And it's amazing. It's not even believable. If you go back 12, 13, 15, 20 years, that we even have to bring up a subject like there will be no trans mutilation. We don't want any transgender mutilization of our children. We don't want to have people pouring into our country from other countries all over the world, where prisons are opened up. All over the world, they're opened up, and they pour into our country. Murderers, 11,888 murders. Think of that. We got many of them out. And by the way, Washington, D.C. just set a new record for safety, and I'm sure you know that. Because, Peter, when you walk down the street, you're not mugged lately. But it's a very safe city now. We took great pains to make it that way, but it actually happened pretty quickly. Within 3 months, it was good. Within 4 months, it was very good. Within 5 months, it was great. Now it's better than it ever was. And so Washington, D.C. is now considered a very, very safe city. We removed almost 4,000 people, just so you understand. You know, an interesting stat is that 2% of the people create more than 90% of the crime. And the good thing about that is when you get rid of 2%, it's not that many, you don't have a lot of crime. But Washington, D.C., we're very proud of. We're very proud of Memphis, Tennessee, and Louisiana, and New Orleans is unbelievable. They had the safest, they just finished their Mardi Gras. They had the safest Mardi Gras in 58 years. The governor just called me, Jeff Landry just called me. He said, it's the safest Mardi Gras in 58 years because of us. And really, Chicago should call and say we'd like help. New York should call. They've had a lot of problems that we want help. Los Angeles should call and probably will. I think they have to. Now, we're going to have to do something when it comes World Cup time, and we're going to have to force ourselves upon them, which we have the right to do, because we don't want to have any crime. We don't want to have any problems for the Olympics and the World Cup, and even for 250. So with all of that, I'm very happy to be signing the voter integrity, and I think it's going to be really great. So if you don't mind, I will take some time, and I'll make this signature absolutely perfect. So it looks very good. So far, so good. Okay, so that's a big deal. Very proud of it. And I don't know how it can be challenged. You'll probably challenge it. You may find a rogue judge. You get a lot of rogue judges. Very bad people, very bad judges. But that's the only way that can be changed, and hopefully we'll win an appeal if it is, but I don't see how anybody can challenge it. I don't see how they can challenge it. And remember, it's about voter integrity. We want to have honest voting in our country, because if you don't have honest voting, you can't have really a nation, if you want to know the truth. Howard, I'll give that to you. Do you have any questions, please?
Yes, Mr. President. As you know, There's issues right now with DHS not being funded. Coast Guard is one of them, which is very important, especially with things going on in the Strait of Hormuz and here in our own country. You have the power to transfer control from the Department of Homeland Security to the Navy. Are you considering doing that?
No, I have a lot of powers to do things, and we use the powers where appropriate. Sometimes you don't have to use those powers. They're a little severe. And then people accuse me of being a king. You see, the king, this is the new one. They've been trying for a long time, including 4 years where I was out of office watching how badly this country was run. But they've been trying for a long time. You know what they really are doing is they want to have people coming into our country. They want to have open borders. They want to have criminals coming into our country. They want to have people unchecked, unvetted, coming into our country that you can look at them and say, this is not good. And that's what happened. They allowed 25 million people into our country. Many of those people were criminals. Many of them were drug dealers and murderers and people that were let out of mental institutions, prison populations. In some countries, the Congo, almost its entire prison population was allowed to come into the United States of America. The Congo. Many of the countries in South America, they emptied their prisons out into our country. This was under Biden, and nobody can tell me that's a good thing. And yet, they haven't changed their ways, because if they ever took power, they would open up the borders and they would let people pour in and destroy our country. So I have many powers, but I don't have to use them. I mean, only in severe cases. Yeah.
Mr. President, thank you. If you were able to sign the executive order to pay the TSA agents, why not do the same for FEMA and other agencies within the Department of Homeland Security?
Well, FEMA is different, because FEMA, I really believe that it's fine, but I think it's very inefficient. I think, we have smart governors, and one way to tell whether or not they're smart is how well they do. FEMA is a very expensive way of trying to put out a problem. But what I'd rather do is let the states do it and help them financially, but let the states do it. In other words, you'll have a hurricane in Florida, and people will come from Alaska. They haven't been to Florida. By the time they get used to it, the problem can be solved. So I've never been a big fan of FEMA. I like to keep it local. I like to see governors and neighboring states help each other, as opposed to FEMA. FEMA is very expensive, and it really doesn't get the job done. North Carolina, they did a terrible job until I became elected a second time, and I went and we had that tremendous water flood. There was a water hurricane, the likes of which nobody has seen. The land areas that never had lakes all of a sudden had lakes that you couldn't even get to it. And actually, we were helped by Elon Musk with the communication, with his great communication system that worked very well. We were very lucky, saved a lot of lives. But no, we got to do things right, and if you don't do them right, we shouldn't do them at all. Yeah, please.
Thank you, President Trump. After you said today that the Iran war may be ending soon, the stock market closed much higher. Do you have thoughts on that? And also, a judge just ordered you to stop construction of the Ballroom. Are you planning to stop?
Well, we'll appeal that, but it's not. I don't know. It's basically. I mean, I wrote a part of his opinion, but basically he's saying I need congressional approval, and he's so wrong. This is being financed privately. It's a donation that's being given by companies, very rich people, so that for 150 years they've wanted a ballroom here. We're going to have the finest ballroom, I believe, anywhere in the world. And he said, we need congressional approval. Well, they don't get congressional approval from the White House. When they do things, they don't, especially when we didn't ask for any tax money. We have no tax. This is taxpayer free. We have no taxpayer putting up 10 cents. And I see right here, I just wrote it out, he said we need congressional approval. Well, we built many things at the White House over the years. They don't get congressional approval when they build in the White House. It's totally separate. And especially when it's a donation. I mean, the Ballroom is a donation. It's gotten great reviews. People love it. And presidents for 150 years have wanted this ballroom to be built, because when we have President Xi or other presidents or prime ministers coming, we don't have a big room. We have the East Room, which is very small. And he said we need congressional approval. He also said, but this is positive for us, I'm allowed, meaning we are allowed to continue building as necessary to, let's see, what is that? To cover the safety and security of the White House and its grounds. So it says here very carefully, the safety and security have to be protected of the White House grounds. Well, that's what we're doing because everything's bulletproof glass, et cetera, including the ballroom. And then it goes construction and all of the things necessary. It says personal safety of the president and his staff are a part of that. So it talks about that we're allowed to continue building. In other words, he put an order on, and even that he gave 14 days. We don't need it because that's what we're doing. He's allowed to continue building as necessary. And when it talks about the safety and security of the White House and its grounds. So just so you know, I wrote some of the thing down. We have a drone-proof roof, and it talks about the president and his staff. Well, we don't have a lot of bulletproof glass. The White House was built a long time ago. This has the highest level of, in fact, they call this glass, it's bulletproof and it's ballistic proof. It's very thick. It's like that. And it's going 45 feet high, and every window is covered, every door is covered. The roof is drone-proof. We have secure air handling systems. You know, bad things happen in the air if you have bad people. We have bio-defense all over. We have secure telecommunications and communications all over. We have bomb shelters that we're building. We have a hospital and very major medical facilities that we're building. We have all of these things. So that's called, I'm allowed to continue building as necessary. So think of that, for the safety of the president. So we have all these things. So on that, we're okay. Where he's totally wrong, and he made, you know, a statement that's fine, but I'll give you an example. You have right here $300 to $400 million, depending on finishes. If I use very expensive marble, if I use very expensive wall coatings, if I could bring it up to 400. Otherwise, we're right now ahead of schedule, we're under budget. But depending on finishes, from $300 to $400 million are being given by great people, people that you all know. Rich people, rich companies, big companies. They wanted to see this built because every president, literally for 150 years, has needed a space like this. Many of you have gone to the tent when we have a president of a big country or somebody being honored of great distinction, and they sit in a tent, and if it rains, you get soaked because the grass gets wet here very fast. It's a wet area. They used to call it a wetland, but I guess they don't do that for the White House, but it's essentially a wetland. And when it rains, you're in trouble. The water can go up to 3 to 4 inches over their shoes. That's not a good feeling for who was Prince Charles, who will be here next couple of weeks, is King Charles, who's a great guy. We don't want him to sit in a pool of water. And they've been wanting this for 150 years, and we're building it, and it's covered perfectly. What's not covered perfectly is the fact that the judge said we need congressional approval. Many things have been built in the White House. They haven't gotten congressional approval, especially when the money is being not put up by the taxpayer. The taxpayer's not putting up a dime. This building was necessary for many years by the fact that I've built many ballrooms, and I built many things, and I know how to build. I'm not building the Federal Reserve where the guy's spending $4 billion for a tiny little building. $4 billion for the Federal Reserve building. That contractor is going to be one of the richest men anywhere in the world after he finishes the Federal Reserve. The man is totally incompetent. Jerome Too-Late Powell is totally incompetent, and he's got to get out of office pretty fast. He's doing a bad job, but he's also done a bad job in shepherding the construction of that building. Do you know they ripped down a part of that building, and it was they say it's one of the nicest buildings in Washington. They ripped it down. So we feel, and we don't feel, we know that congressional approval is not necessary to put up a ballroom. And many things have been built on the site, they've never gotten congressional approval. and especially when the money is all put up. This is all donations by people that love our country, that love the White House, and that feel it was very necessary.
Mr. President, a couple of questions for you on Iran, but first one that affects Americans here at home, gas prices. Today they hit $4.
And we're $4, yeah, and we have a country that's not going to be throwing a nuclear weapon at us in 6 months.
But Americans are feeling the effects in the interim.
And they're also feeling a lot safer.
What is the plan to bring them back down?
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon. And they'll become tumbling down. And stock prices were up today almost to a record because they know two things. Number one, we have a safe country. We had to take a little detour because we had a madman named Khomeini who sadly is no longer with us. And we had regime change already. We've knocked out one regime, then we knocked out the second regime. Now we have a group of people that are very different. They're much more reasonable, I think much less radicalized. We have had regime change. We're dealing with people that are much more rational, and it's amazing what we've done. We had to make a little detour. So when the stock market broke all records just a few weeks ago, when it hit 50,000 on the Dow, 7,000 on the S&P, I said to the American people, it's time that we have to make a little detour because we have a madman that wants a nuclear weapon. And if we didn't knock him out with a B-2 bomber, we would have a nuclear weapon right now. It would have been used before today. And you may not be standing there asking that question, okay? So I think we have a country that understands that. I see CNN did a poll, and they talked about voters or MAGA voters, and my poll came out at 100%. Nobody covers that poll. They had another poll where it was at 92% approval. I think that the people understand it. We'll be leaving very soon, and if France or some other country wants to get oil or gas, they'll go up through the Strait and Hormuz Strait. They'll go right up there, and they'll be able to fend for themselves. I think it'll be very safe, actually, but we have nothing to do with that. What happens in the Strait, we're not going to have anything to do with, because these countries, China will go up and they'll fuel up their beautiful ships and they'll leave and they'll take care of themselves. There's no reason for us to do it. We hit them hard. We got rid of a lot of the radicalized lunatics along the Strait. But if they want something, but I would say that within 2 weeks, maybe 3. We're hitting them very hard. Last night we knocked out tremendous amounts of missile-making facilities. As you probably read or wrote, we knocked out. Excuse me.
Pardon me for interrupting. The U.S. will be gone or done with the war?
I think with 2 or 3 weeks.
Not 3 weeks. If it is,
we'll leave because there's no reason for us to do this. Look, problem with the Strait. A guy can take a mine, drop it in the water, and say, "Oh, it's unsafe." It's not like you're taking out an army or you're taking out a country, or they can drop it. Or you can take a machine gun from the shore and shoot a few bullets at a ship, or maybe an over-the-shoulder missile, small missiles. That's not for us. That'll be for France. That'll be for whoever's using the Strait. But I think when we leave, probably that's all cleared up. Today I heard tremendous numbers of ships were sailing through. We're negotiating with them right now. They've been, again, we have had regime change. Now, regime change was not one of the things I had as a goal. I had one goal. They will have no nuclear weapon. And that goal has been attained. They will not have nuclear weapons. But we're finishing the job, and I think within maybe 2 weeks, maybe a couple of days longer to do the job. But we want to knock out every single thing they have. Now, it's possible that we'll make a deal before that, because we'll hit bridges, and we'll hit some bridges. We've got a couple of nice bridges in mind. But if they come to the table, that'll be good. But it doesn't matter whether they come or not. We've set them back. It'll take 15 to 20 years for them to rebuild what we've done to them. They have no Navy. They have no military. They have no Air Force. They have no telecommunications. They have no anti-aircraft systems. They have no leaders. You know, their leaders are all gone. That's why we have regime change. We have nice new leaders. Peter?
Thanks, President Trump. You talked about how the ballroom needs to have a drone-proof roof.
Right.
There have been drone swarms flying over sensitive military installations in the U.S. over the last couple weeks. The reports are they don't look commercial and they can't be jammed. Is this another country's military?
I don't think so. We have a great system of. Do you notice that over the last 4 or 5 days you haven't seen very many drone hits, right? We have some unbelievable anti-drone weaponry that's incredible. But you want to have, like, for instance, the Ballroom. We have a very powerful very steel roof with other things in it. And you want to have, if you're building a building for security, just like his judge's opinion, you have to have security for the president and his staff. You need heavy, strong ceilings. You need seriously thick, bulletproof, ballistic glass. And we have that. Other buildings don't. Fairly modern buildings don't have that. They have roofs that are weak, and they have regular glass windows.
There was this incident down at Barksdale, though, where apparently a whole swarm of drones for a couple hours was over the flight line. There's a lot of really important planes down there.
Yeah.
How concerned are you that this is something?
Well, I'm not concerned. Yeah, I know about it. They've checked that out, and they've gotten to the bottom of it. You have a lot of people now that fly these things all over the place, and we're coming down very hard on them. But we're able to take them out militarily. We're able to take them out very easily. And a new thing is lasers. The lasers are becoming very, very effective. You hit a drone and